Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our webinar today. We'll just give everybody a few moments to join us on today. We've got a number of people signed up, which is fabulous. Obviously a good topic. Hi, Clayton. How you doing?
Hello. Yes, it's very topical and very timely at this time of year. So
very timely, very timely. How's the weather in sunny Victoria at the moment? Is it sunny?
Aubrey. It's not sunny here. It's cloudy, but anyway. Winter, freezing. I'm assuming it's nice over there.
Yes, for those who are normally used to joining a Clarity Street webinar, you're usually used to having a nice, lovely neon sign in the background. Today, you do not have that because I am presenting the webinar from the other side of the world. Yay! How good is having a cloud-based business? So I'm actually located in London at the moment. And can I just say the weather has been weirdly absolutely delightful, which is nice. Which is nice. High 20s, which has been great. Can't complain. So it's been lovely. But anyway, all right, enough about the weather. Let's start this webinar today, okay? So thank you so much for joining me, Clayton. I'm pretty excited to be joining you to present the engage and then re-engage with ease. Some might even say seamlessly, which is a bit exciting. So we are talking about Seamlss today, but let's kick things off. We have about 45 minutes today, everybody. If you've got questions, if you would like to post, queries, questions within the chat, please do so. Make this as interactive as possible because the more questions you ask, the better feedback for everybody involved. So let's go. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Amy Holdsworth. I am the CEO and founder of Clarity Street. Clarity Street is a cloud-based business that designs and delivers dynamic, tailored and best practice infrastructures for accounting firms. What that really means is we help accounting practices to either transition from server-based applications to cloud-based applications. For those that have already transitioned, we help you optimize it through training, through education, through best practice implementations, through cleanups. We help you and your team get the most out of your app stack from an integration perspective. So is your business running at your optimal best on an operational standpoint so that you can service as many clients as possible and serve them in the way that you would like to, basically. So point of today's session, though, is we're talking about Seamlss, which we're pretty excited to bring you today. So Seamlss are the latest app stack to join Clarity Street, and we'll go into what they do, obviously, in greater detail throughout our 45 minutes today. We're going to talk about how to enhance the onboarding experience so you can delight your clients from the very first touch point that you have with them, which is, as Clayton will attest to, when we have this conversation. If you get the onboarding right, you'll have a client for life. What is it? 80%, I think you just told me, Clayton?
80% more likely to remain. So
there you go. We'll talk about the importance of re-engagement. Very timely, considering especially for the Australian market right now. Why you should be re-engaging your clients, prepping them for the new financial year. A smooth integration, how it impacts other apps, because we've had some interesting feedback around what Seamlss does, and does it do what other apps do in the marketplace? Where does it fit? So we're going to unpack that one as well. And obviously throughout the session, please ask as many questions as you can. Just make it interactive for everyone. So without further ado, Seamlss are now featured on our app stack under the engagement, invoicing and payment section. Not that you do all of those things, but you definitely take care of the engagement component from an app stack perspective. I was pretty excited when I first got the information around Seamlss, Clayton, about what this product actually does, which we're obviously going to unpack today. But it was super exciting for me because of the integration, one of the major pain points that you are solving for the industry, which is how apps get onto this app stack. You are solving a pain point for the industry, just around, how you actually onboard a new client, that whole process, making it streamlined and efficient and removing the human error from a touch point perspective and data entry perspective, but also putting the onus back on the client a little bit more, which is even better. And just the best thing that I loved was that it pushes the information back to Xero Practice Manager. So there's no more data entry.
Yes.
So I'm going to stop talking for a moment and let you do some talking. Clayton, tell me about you. Tell me about Seamlss. What's going on with the product?
Yeah, so I'm Clayton Wood, co-founder of Seamlss, also an accounting firm owner. So that's why Seamlss was founded, is because I had the pain point, seen the opportunity where everybody else had the pain point. So we wanted to close that gap and make that process of onboarding easy as it should be for clients, and sort of end-to-end that process from collecting the data, verifying the clients, to getting them engaged and onboarded with your firm. And obviously from that, we've turned around and introduced the re-engage factor so that you can re-engage them every year and make that a part of your process. And I think it's important to automate as much of that as you can, and that's where we've built that, is to help automate it. Along my journey into this co-founding position, I did actually ring Amy 2-3 years ago and asked a bunch of questions about this space, and I said blah 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 blah, and she said, yeah, no one does that, I need that. So I said, let's do this. So we did, and here we are, and excited to be on the Cloud Firm Max stack for Clarity Street.
Awesome. So high level, what does your product do? Elevator pitch. What do you do?
Onboard clients for accounting firms and their entities. So you're collecting the client details, the company details, super fund details, all that stuff, and you're verifying them and you're adding them to your firm, and you're injecting it into XPM. Awesome. If you're not using, you don't have to use XPM, obviously, because there are firms out there using it for Mile, but yes, Mile, AE, AO, whatever it is.
Cool. Yep. Yeah, cool. I think this is the thing that I love about this product the most, is just what it does from a client experience perspective, but more so it removes, you rock up to, same as in a medical, like you rock up to a new doctor, for example, but a new accounting practice, and you're sitting there in the waiting room, traditional style, clipboard form that you have to fill in with all the information. It's progressed a little bit beyond that these days, which I appreciate, right? So we have progressed it a little bit more than that, which is usually it's a it's a possibly a PDF that gets sent, that they have to fill in, that they either have to type in, they either have to, write in with all of that sensitive information and that kind of thing, which then gets sent back to the accounting practice, which somebody then has to sit there and manually enter that information into your practice management software. In this instance, obviously the benefit here is that it connects in with the XPM, but as you said, standalone products, you still have to, do that manual data entry. But trying to gather that information and all of the toing and froing and that kind of thing. And obviously there are other options these days if you want to get a little bit more techie around, you could use Jotform, for example, or you could use Microsoft Forms to gather that information. But the pain point that I love from this perspective is that even if you collect that information, unless you're really tech savvy and, you've got maybe some zaps connected and being able to push bits and pieces of information, realistically, it can gather that information, but there's nothing to actually push that into XPM or your practice management software yet. And that's the bit that I love about Seamlss, is that it can automatically push that info across. And, not only is it pushing that info, but you're also getting the client to sign off an engagement agreement as well, which, depending on how you use this product in terms of at which point in the client life cycle you actually use it, it obviously allows you to remain compliant, so that if you have to do a pre-check with a client, like get access to their Xero file, for example, and have a look at how crap their data is, you've covered thy butt from an engagement perspective without actually physically doing anything, or sending a proper engagement term. So that's what I like about it.
And every firm tends to have a little bit of different process in how they onboard. But generally there's either a paper or a manual form. The verification could be awkward. It could be done by Zoom. It could be in person. One would hope it's not done on email, but it's about pulling all that together as one process and making it really easy for the clients. So some firms have got bigger clients and they wanted to key that data in for the client, or as much data as they can. So we've enabled that so that you can actually fill in their companies and all the data that you can collect manually, fill it in. And then when you send it to the client, they're not entering in. So one firm had like 25 entities to onboard, and they didn't want the client to sit there and enter all that in. So they wanted to do it for them, which that's fine if that's what you want to do. But my goal was
how did they get that information first from the client though? That's the part that I don't understand.
I don't know. So everyone's different. So obviously if you're going to scope out a job, you could onboard them with Seamlss, you've engaged them, you can add them to the HO portal. You could really have a look at where they're at on the HO portal. Are they up to date with their things? Do they have a lot of tax? So when you have that pre-meeting and you're having that discussion about whether they're a good fit for your firm, you're already aware of all that information. You've already got a good overview of the client. Some firms will have the meeting and then offer the services and then on board. So it just depends on where that sits as well. So
yeah, nice one.
Good to have flexibility.
Yeah, good one. Okay. Let's just jump in. Let's just take a look at the app. So let's just have a look and see and actually show the audience how cool this piece of software actually is. So I'm hoping that everybody can now see Clayton's screen. If we did a smooth transition there from a share screen, I can see it.
Excellent. That means everyone else can too.
Yeah, hopefully everybody else can too.
So we've got a basic overview on the dashboard, a few different dashboards here. So you've got importing client leads. So if you're connected to Zapier and you're doing things like us with Calendly, so in my firm we have Calendly. So when they book in, they just jump straight in here, and all the data is already in there from the client initially booking in. So utilizing those automations, you can send them for an onboarding just with a click of a button. All the data's in there. If you want to add another company, then add a company. If you know that they've got a super fund or whatever trust, you can add that as well. And then select how you're going to verify their identity as per the ATO practitioners board. So you can either do Stripe, which has got an additional $5 cost, or you can do the source. So the source one is what most firms are doing because it's quick and it's easy and it gives you multiple different options.
Yep.
If you were doing just an individual tax return client, you could just tick the individual tax return. So you could just request the tax return data. So for those ITR lodging firms, there is that opportunity. And you could obviously select from different engagement letter templates, whichever one you've loaded up. Apparently some firms have multiple different templates. We just have one which covers everything, but that's up to you. Send it for onboarding and away it goes. The client will get it, they will fill it out, and then they will onboard. If they're slack, like most clients, they're probably not going to do it straight away. So you will probably ring them up and go, hey, we've sent you another onboarding request. So you'll have to follow them up with a prompt or an SMS because, that's just life and it happens. When they've done the work, usually this over here is empty for me anyway. Leanne's amazing. So my team member, I thought that was broken. I had to ask the developer, I'm like, is this something wrong? And she's like, no, she just does it so quickly that there's never anything on that part of the screen. So that's that part there.
You just have a dream admin person. That's all that comes down to, Clayton.
Yeah, I'm very lucky. And then obviously you can search for the clients. All of the clients will also show up here. Go to the first screen. So you can view all of them in the dashboard. I usually just search for the client and then they'll come up. I've got this as myself, just for looking. You can see all of the name, address, details, all that fun stuff. The identity verification. So you'll be able to review the identity verification part. All of their entities are in there. So all the data that they filled out. So TFNs, ABNs, ACNs. You've also got some forms, the tax return form that we talked about, getting the deductions and things off the client, all of the documents, so engagement letter, the forms that they've created. You can add some notes if you want to add notes. You've got history, which you can view which team member was in the client, what were they doing, what were they requesting, and you can also delete the client. So that's where we're at for that. Do you want me to show you what it looks like from the client side?
Yes, I'm glad that you actually said that because I was actually about to say it's curveball. Can we see what it looks like from the client perspective? Because I feel like that's one of the major things that accountants always, what is my client actually going to see?
So we'll request an identity request just now. So I'll send that request. The client will get that.
Clicking through very fast, Clayton. I'm just letting you know.
I'm sorry. I'm just signing out. Clearly I'm an accountant, not a professional salesperson. So as a firm, I've got a client area and a firm dashboard area. So right now I'm going to go in as a client. Here's all my requests that I've sent because I've been testing and demoing. Obviously, as a client, they'll usually just, they'll get an email with a link and they'll click on the link and they'll log in and they'll get an SMS to log in. So there's no complicated passwords or anything like that. It makes it really, really easy for the clients to do what you want them to do, because there are some other tools out there where they've got to create a password and things like that. But this is also 2FA to keep it secure in accordance with, just keeping everything secure, but also the ATO. Everything's got to be 2FA if you're dealing with TFNs and sensitive data like that. Yep. So the idea was to keep it super easy. So it's an email with a link and an SMS to log in. So easy for clients. They'll log in straight to the screen and they'll start onboarding. And this is an identity request. So here's the one from the other day. I will just choose a file. Just give me 1 second. And Seamlss. And you'll see my amazing fake license here. I'll upload in a minute. So that will upload that. And that's done. I've obviously requested twice. So yeah.
Yep.
Continue. We'll go back home. And from here, you can see the forms like that they key in. So obviously I've already pre-filled this. So you could type in people's actual names, whatever it is, put in the date of birth, tax file numbers, street addresses, things like that. And then
if you have pre-filled in any of this information, this will come to the client pre-populated, for example.
Yeah.
And they have the option to either update it and or add or remove information accordingly.
Yes, they won't go back and forth through the dashboard either. It will just go through one long flow of actioning all these forms. Usually it's only looking like this because of I'm in and out of the demo file for this reason, but they will actually just go key in their individual details, key in their company details, fill in the ITR form, sign the engagement letter.
Amazing. So with that as well, you can send a completely blank form to them, right? And actually say, well, you've told me that you have an individual and a company. Do they have the ability through this to say, well, actually, I totally forgot that I have 2 trusts as well. Whoopsie, my bad.
No, you would have to get that request and do another request. So
completely fine. Just thought I'd ask that question.
We'll just sign out and then go back into the dashboard. But you can obviously do that request again. So you could do a new request and add the new entity, request that. As you just said, they will get a link and they'll have to fill that in again. I've obviously done all this stuff. So the verification. So this is the number one thing that most people are doing these days because they're trying to verify their clients and it's just awkward. It's either awkward at the front desk and the person's going to show me your ID. This night time's hard to get into. So, either that or you're going to do it over Zoom. And God forbid, I hope you're not sending IDs over email. So we don't want that. So the source document allows you to send through BAS statements, TFN reports, just anything government ATO related that you'll be able to verify them with, or you can send obviously their license and ID. So this is what it looks like. You're going to be able to view the file. Well, there it is there. That's really big. Is
that an old license?
No, yeah, it's edited. It's mine. Because when we tried to do it with Stripe wanted something that looked real. But yeah, so you view it, you go, yeah, that looks like Clayton, got the right addresses and stuff, right date of birth, cool. Pick what they've given you. So this is the audit trail that the ATO and Tax Practitioners Board want to say, so how you did it. And then, confirm, and then I'll delete it, mark it as verified. And then it's all verified, and there's the audit log of what you need to say that, I verified that client. So as a part of the process, you'll collect the client's details, add them to the ATO portal, look at their document from verification point of view, and then verify it against them versus the ATO and things like that to verify them that they are who they say they are. And then you tick in the ATO audit requirement. So that's that bit. There's the entity. The main thing you wanted to see, Amy, was review and sync. So I am not in my XPM. So it's actually checking all of the XPM data information to see if they are, and you'll see that there's a bunch of lists, and I am not those people. So it's going to inject all this data into XPM. You can edit this if you send, that email had looks a bit wrong. I'll pick that up. Think of this XPM. You can actually edit it in the edit screen as well. We can view it in XPM and it'll take you straight to the client and see all the data that's imported.
This is awesome. Like, this is the part that I love the most, is that you actually get to check it beforehand.
Yep.
Just pass your eye over it, make sure that it doesn't look odd as you say, oh, hang on, that email address might be wrong. Let's just fix that quickly. And then you can.
and then it's all in XPM. So you've just saved all that data entry. So data from point one when they're booked in with Calendly. So the best thing is like Celeste was telling me a while ago, like we don't touch people's names, phone numbers, or emails. We don't need to. So the only time it's going to be wrong is when the client first put it in wrong. So if they put it in with Calendly, it's gone from Calendly to Seamlss, Seamlss to XPM. All those details, we haven't touched them. Usually the client has keyed them all in for us. It saved us a lot of time. It's just fantastic. So yeah.
Yeah, that's the part that I love. But also it's removed us making the error. It's like if the client has filled this in, then the onus is back on the client. Now, if there was ever an error with it, I mean, you're obviously going to have to be diplomatic about how you tell your client that they were actually wrong and they weren't able, like they put the information in incorrectly.
Yes.
But at least, you know, there's no, like, at the end of the day, I know that, you know, the industry suffers from, at times, trusting data and making sure that data is correct. At least in this instance, we can't kind of really blame our team, which is a beautiful thing these days, is that, you know, the onus is actually very much back onto the client to ensure that their details are up to scratch and up to date, which is, you know, as I said, it's a nice level of comfort that we can add to the client experience, but also just that whole experience of being able to be onboarded digitally and easily. Like I can follow the bouncing ball, like as a client following that bouncing ball to enter in all of my client information. God, that makes life so much easier. Like just so much easier. I had an experience recently just dealing with a mortgage broker, and the similar kind of situation insofar as I had two experiences. One guy told me to email him things, like email all of my relevant information across to him. And I went, I'm comfortable with that. Is there another option? He went, oh, you could probably use Dropbox or something. And I went, you're probably not the right fit for me as a potential mortgage broker moving forward. Versus the other guy that I ended up using had a similar system, obviously not specific, like it was specific to what his requirements were, but it was just easy. I could sit there and punch away all the information, drag, drop, attachments and bits and pieces. It was brilliant. I loved it. So
exactly. And I've had a lot of feedback where, especially bookkeeping firms and stuff, where they're trying to onboard a client and they might need a trust deed or something else to verify the client. So that's where this source document option is really good, because you can get any source document, a BAS statement, activity integrated client account, whatever it is. So you can get different documents to verify the client. It's not just an ID. Most people will use an ID, but there are those edge circumstances where you do it. We've also just added a new fetch request, so you can just request a document from a client and just say, send your bank statement.
Yeah.
And then you can put that question in, you can say, I want to file, and then you can send the client and say, hey, send me that document securely, not on email, through Seamlss, and it's done. There is also the ability to have different forms. So you enter financial year questions or whatever it is that you're using. So that's only just come out now. But
hang on, whoa, don't gloss over that. Don't gloss over that. Like, don't fast forward through that process. Hang on a second. So you've got forms. We've also got some questions in the chat, which we'll get to in a moment. So thank you everybody for putting those questions in. So you've got forms that are specific to, like, are they forms that you can create? Are they customizable? What's going on with your forms at the moment?
Yeah, so there's a whole form builder app, part of the app, where you can put in the contents and add your questions as you go. So build out the whole form as you like, as your firm. I did put out a request the other day on the Facebook, requesting that anyone share some forms with me so that I could build them and share them with the community, but unfortunately no one reached out. So I have to try and work it out myself. So I will build out some forms. Hopefully people will like them. We'll see how we go.
There's a shout out. If anybody wants to actually get their form pre-built into this, send one to Clayton, and he'll build it in as a template, for example. I mean, they're all pretty standardized forms at the end of the day. Like information that you're requesting are pretty standard stuff. So if you want to get your form already put in there, send it to Clayton. He'll end up using it as a template, which is great.
Again, it gets it off email and that secure aspect. So there's certain things you shouldn't be putting on email these days. Like with all the security and stuff going on, it's just not ideal. So that's that part of the process. So that's the onboarding, and that's the side bit of the forms that we just talked about. So love to know more from people around that.
Before you kick on with anything more, let's answer some questions.
Sure.
Does Seamlss only integrate with Calendly? Can it be utilized with other booking systems such as Get Timely? Good question, Tori. Thank you.
Great question. It's through Zapier. So we use Calendly. It works through Calendly. I have other firms using other apps for bookings. And so I know that it does work. It's just a matter of setting up the Zapier connection and going through that process. There's a little guide on our website that will take you through. And if you've used Zapier, it's just a, create the Zap, connect up, if this, then that, add a client, add some keys. It's not simple, but it's not hard. You can follow the bouncing ball along the help guide here, and that will show you how to do that, so to speak. So I'm not saying it doesn't work with that app, but if it connects with Zapier, it probably will. So.
Yeah, okay, cool. So this is probably more of a Tori, in relation to that question, maybe check if Get Timely has an integration with Zapier, because if it does, then it should be easy enough to obviously integrate. If you want any assistance around that, feel free to reach out to us, either Seamlss or Clarity Street around that, and we can look into it a little bit more. Okay, so the next one is, if you have already onboarded clients through another software, can you import existing clients into Seamlss? So I'm trying to think of a use case here, being that, for example, you've onboarded them through, I don't know, Go Proposal, through Ignition, through something else. Could you possibly, can you import that client list into here? Actually, does it pull from XPM? It does. Is that correct?
Not yet. We're working on
cool.
that.
Okay, cool.
So you can,
XPM, okay.
You can export from XPM, and you can export from other tools, just not Mile. Unfortunately, they don't have any export capability. But some tools do allow you to export a CSV file, things like that. I know Handysoft, back in the day, I did the same thing. So you can technically pull all that data, download our import file, format it out, and then import it. You can import one, many, whatever. And from here, once they're imported, you can allocate them and then send them onboarding requests and things like that. So if they're coming from Ignition, do we want to talk about that now or in a minute?
Well, actually, there is a question about that, which I was going to park that one for the moment. So Andy has said, so this is the same like Ignition. There are similar features and there are crossovers, but it's not actually the same product, and it does do different things. And we're going to actually unpack that a little bit more in a moment. So let's not talk about Ignition just yet, because it's probably a bigger conversation around the context of where Ignition fits in relation to Seamlss.
Yes, 100%.
Cool. Elena wants you to go back to forms. Before we do that, is there anything else? Request client information process. Can this, the request client information process, can this be done after onboarding, or is this limited to the onboarding process?
You would onboard the client, because you need to onboard the client, verify their identity, verify their information, then you could request more information. You can request the ITR form at the same time, but I feel like maybe at some point we'll make it so that you can onboard and collect all their end of financial year data, but it's not in there right now. But in my mind, you should be onboarding them, checking them, because I want to know if they're on the ATO portal that $100,000, $200,000, am I going to get paid? Like, the whole point of getting an engagement letter signed is so that you get paid still, So
yeah, cool.
Everyone's process is a little different, but yeah, you can onboard them and then send out a request on a form for more data. So
yeah, cool. Does it have to come from Calendly, or can we initiate it from Seamlss itself to collect data? Is there a way to change what fields are mandatory for the client to enter? Good question, actually. I know the answer to half of that, which is no, you certainly don't have to have them book in a meeting via Calendly. This is just more if you would like to streamline your book a meeting, fill out a form to be onboarded, etc. process, then you have that option. But if you want to have that as completely standalone, no, you can just have a meeting. They pick up the phone, they call you and say, hey, I want to have an appointment, book them in, have a chat, and then you can launch it directly from Seamlss. But the second part is there a way to change what fields are mandatory for the client to enter? I'll let you answer that one, Clayton.
No, I'll go back to the other bit as well with the leads. So if they're not booking with Calendly, that's okay, because a lot of people have referrals and things. So collecting the referral information is why we created the lead link. So everyone gets their own custom lead link. So if you send the lead link to a referral, they'll fill in the details and it gets you started, because that data will come back to your dashboard here as lead links. So you're collecting the leads informations directly from the source. And you can also put that on your website, for example, and then you're collecting that information directly. So that's around the leads. The data is structured data. So if you think about the data we're collecting, it's very important data, and it's structured in a certain way that it's got to go somewhere. So the data has to be structured in a certain way, like tax file numbers, AVNs, ACNs, names, addresses. It's got to go into XVM. So we don't have any free field, custom fields yet in the forms, because it's structured data and it's getting packaged up and sent somewhere specific. But we did obviously create the other new fetch requests, so you could ask additional questions later. So you could ask quick questions or request files or additional documents. That's the whole point of the templating forms and creating extra questions. So hopefully that answers that question.
Do you have users in New Zealand, and will it work well in the New Zealand for the New Zealand client base at the moment? Because I know that they have very strict requirements around ID checks and things like that. So
we are
plan on that one.
We are talking to we have talked to a few firms in New Zealand, and it is on our short-term job to spin up a Seamlss in New Zealand and get to it. So by all means, reach out, let us know that you want to be a user of this tool. Basically, our biggest hurdle has been overcoming, because same thing, everyone's got a different process and a different way and a different outcome. So none of them have been saying, oh, this is what you need to do. Nothing is it's like Australia, everyone's got their own way of doing it. So when we create it, we've already got the tools and everything else. It's just a matter of making it for I think it's the IRD, Inland Revenue Department, I think.
Yes, it is.
And so it is on our short-term development cycle to go to New Zealand soon. So
good.
Definitely reach out.
And well played you for not giving a time frame, just to be on the safe side. But I do like that it is on the short-term list. Fabulous. I think I've covered everything. I don't think I've missed anything. Great. Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's unpack now. Do you want to stay in the app or not? Actually, let me just flick to. Do we have anything else that you want to show us within the app, actually?
We obviously got your templates that people usually asking about. So you got your welcome emails, you can adjust those. The other one was having different engagement letter templates. So some people have a template for STP, a template for tax returns, like all these different templates. So we have the default one that everything will just go to, but then when you send a request, you can actually select which one you want. So that's one of the other people that they all ask about. The data center.
Just to jump in on that point though, I would strongly recommend just having one catch-all engagement letter, cover thy butt. Just have one. Makes life easier.
The data center you can import in bulk, and you can also do bulk identity. So some firms have tried to do bulk identity requests. So you'll be able to just dump a big CSV and send it all out and get them all to identify themselves for verification purposes.
Cool. That's very cool.
Users wise, there's no user limit, but generally we recommend that the inbox who's actioning it would be the admin person or a couple who have access to the same inbox, so that if someone's away, someone's still onboarding the client, and the client's having a good experience, because it's all about it, making the client experience so much better. If the client has a disjointed experience with paper and weird forms and everything else, then you're not really showing your true colors as a firm. If it's making it really easy, the client will love you for it. So that's a key part, of making sure the right users got the right access. Yes, that's probably the main points of. I'm going to miss something, 100%.
Tell me what's on the roadmap. Are we allowed to talk about what's on the roadmap, or we're not allowed to talk about it? Daniel might be.
No.
Head of dev might be going, stop it, Amy, stop talking about this stuff.
Daniel will be. We're short term. The biggest thing right now I want to do this month, which no pressure, Daniel, is the ITR collection form. So that's going to get built out more, because I want it. There's a lot of firms out there still do lots of tax returns, just individuals. So I want that to be really seamless and really easy, that you can just send it out to the clients. they'll give you the data that you need, because generally we get all the pre-filled data, so you don't need much. For many clients, it's just, what were your deductions? Send me your new car, send me your receipts. So it's all about creating that efficiency. And then my other short-term goal is to allow for a bulk import from XPM so that you can just send out all the individual tax returns. So while we're creating the sync around XPM, I at least want to be able to do a quick dump into the data center over here, where you'll be able to click them all out. So, yeah. Celeste wants re-engage. Good point, Celeste. Yes, yes. The other reason we're on the call.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We're meant to show you how to re-engage your clients ready for the new financial year. Soz, look at us go.
We've been using the Business Edge for a while now, so we've got hundreds of clients in there. So the re-engagement process is a little bit easier. But you can bulk import your clients, get them structured up, get them ready to go, and then you can re-engage them. So if the client was fairly big, let's see, I think this one should be okay. Yeah, so the re-engagement here, from the client perspective, you can do it there and you can send it out. So outcasts,
what are we doing? What are we doing here? We're getting them to verify details. Is that the whole point of this?
Yes, 100%. So imagine some people want to do it once a year. I don't think that's a great idea. If you're using other tools, perfect, makes sense. But from my perspective in the firm, like if I'm going to do Amy's tax return in November, I don't want to do a re-engagement in June. I want to do it just before her documents are ready. You could do the re-engagement in June and then send you another request in November when I'm going to do your tax return. The reason why you do it is because that way you can confirm their details. So I'm sure every accountant on this call has never sent out a tax return with the wrong address or bank details, because that just doesn't happen. We're all perfect. So if you send out a re-engagement, they will check the bank details, they'll check the address, and they'll update them and let you know. So they're going to sign an up-to-date engagement letter with all of their entities on it, and you're going to have the correct details available so that the tax returns and financials all have the right information. So you just send that out, the client will get it, they will check it and say, yes, no, the details are the same, or they've changed, sign the engagement letter, it comes back. All the data is already in there because they've already been onboarded effectively. So that most of the data should be in there. If you've done a bulk import from the data center, you might need to update a little bit in this space here, maybe. But generally all the data will be in there. So the re-engagement process every year, every job, you're doing jobs with the correct information.
Which is interesting. So I think Wayne's just put a little comment in the chat that says, will they actually check? And I think what you're trying to say is, will the client actually check? Look, we can't force clients to do anything, as we well know in this industry, but we can only poke and prod them until the cows come home in hopes that they actually will actually check this information. But, you know, it's an interesting one. So I want to understand actually, so is the re-engage process, is that an automated process? Is that something that you can turn off? Like if you don't want the re-engage function, like what's the deal with that one?
It's not automated.
Right. So you have to manually trigger it. Is that correct?
Yeah. So every year you can see here on the dashboard, there's a up and coming re-engagements. It'll tell you when they're overdue or coming due. So if they're on the re-engagement process, they'll come up. Mine has more than this, so it shows them. And you can request, or you can delay and skip it. So you can just say, no, I'm not going to do this person, they've left or whatever. And then you can add extra entities as always, and you can send it out. And then that's.
Yeah, cool. And I think there also has to be something like around the whole re-engage. I think there's also something to be said for the use of that terminology. There's a lot of fear associated with per se re-engaging clients in this industry. Fear of a client maybe turning around and going, oh, what are you actually doing? Why are you asking me for this information? You know, that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, I feel like this instance around re-engagement, it's not so much around re-engaging them per se. It's more around, can you please check and verify that all of your information is actually correct before we do your work for you? So more like, whilst we're using that term re-engage, don't get stuck on that as a terminology, I think is a better way of saying it. So
100%. And I think it just creates better data. If you've got good data, you have good outcomes. And I'm sorry, but I've had outcomes where the client gets upset because they're, oh, my email changed, or this changed, or that changed. It's like, well, if you don't tell me, well, how am I going to know? So if you're sending it out on a regular basis every year, yes, they're going to sign the engagement letter. You could skip it if you wanted to. If you just wanted to confirm their details, you can do a review for an engagement and skip the engagement letter. So they don't have to sign the engagement letter. You might have used another tool like Ignition, and they've signed the engagement letter there. So skip it. All you're actually doing is sending out the request saying, hey, are your details up to date? Cool, done. Updated in XPM, sending out tax returns and financials with the right data. So
fabulous.
I know
That solves that problem.
Some people might have the process, but I think a lot of firms aren't actually doing that in their day-to-day up-to-date data. So.
Yeah. So another question in here, which is an interesting one. So this can replace the use of tools like Content Snare. Can you send requests for information to multiple contacts? That's going to be another one. So I'll let you unpack where you sit in the likes of Content Snare world. I could give you my opinion on this one, but I'm open, unpack it, Clayton.
Content Snare has been around a lot longer, so they have a lot more forms and things and stuff. I haven't used the forms, so ours is obviously newer. We're building it out. It's going to get better over time, but I would hope that their forms are pretty good. I haven't used it, so I can't comment on it. I have met James at different events and stuff. So, but the whole key point is that you're collecting data, structured data, you're verifying the client, you're signing an engagement letter, and you're onboarding them, and you're injecting the data into XPM. So from what I understand is Content Snare can do some of that, but not all of it.
Mm-hmm. Can you send requests for information to multiple contacts?
Sorry?
Can you send requests for information to multiple contacts? So
at once, no.
Yeah, okay, cool. So I want to send all of my individuals a checklist, hypothetically.
Yes.
Oh, no, actually, no, that's not what that's not what the request is. This is more of there's 3 directors. I think that's more what this is in relation to. There's 3 directors, or there's a group of people, and we want to send 3 people the same checklist, hypothetically.
You can't send them to 3, no. They're not going to, you would have to send them 3 separate ones to 3 separate people. Because each login and each SM mobile number is separent. For
I'm listening.
What was that?
That was my Siri deciding to tell me. Didn't touch anything. I didn't touch anything.
I understood too. It's cool. It's cool.
Sorry. Yes, I interrupted. Carry on.
So yeah, everyone's separate in that process. But I think so. If you were requesting forms or documents, then you would send it to the one primary person. Probably the main thing that they might be asking is, are they going to sign the one engagement letter and have one engagement letter with multiple signs? It's on the roadmap. We have talked about adding that because some people want one engagement letter with one signature, but I guess, yeah, it doesn't do that quite yet. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Fabulous. Just to unpack where you guys sit in relation to the other apps thing. Are we done showing bits and pieces? I feel like we've covered a lot in this.
Sure.
Fair assessment.
Depends on whether you wanted to talk about the other app and the integration. But we can come back to that. So.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Wayne, just to unpack that one, he was actually saying I was meaning multiple contacts in the one organization. So I guess the use case with this is sending it to the director and maybe an admin assistant or something or a bookkeeper, for example, because they might have to chase up this human being to say, hey, you've been sent a form.
Yeah, you could definitely have, because you would have you could send Clayton a request on board, and then you could send Daniel questions. But there would be 2 different contacts in Seamlss, because everyone is their own person within the app from a contact point of view. So
yeah, cool. Easy. All right. Just in the interest of time, I wanted to unpack the next thing, which is where you guys sit in the whole client lifecycle perspective. And this also somewhat covers the conversation around being similar to other apps in the marketplace and where you sit with this, right? So we often show this picture in terms of an integrated app stack, and it comes down to choice ultimately as well, which is what we want here, right? So, you log in through Practice Protect to do, day in the life of it using your cloud apps. You log into Practice Protect hypothetically, your single sign-on solution where all your apps are. You look at where, what's going on with your work schedule. If it's new client work, if it's current client work, it doesn't really matter here. But when it comes to engaging your client, checking your client, verifying your client, there's obviously another app in that space, which we promote heavily as well, which is Ignition. Okay, so this isn't about replacing one for the other or using, different, like it can be used to actually harmoniously together, which is why, you actually are both there because it can be used together. So typically when I've done other app vendor events, if there was another app that was literally a direct competitor in the marketplace, I would remove them off this diagram. Whereas in this instance, I'm not removing Ignition because it can very much be used harmoniously together, which is what I wanted to obviously talk about too. But also just in the space of, to answer, from a content snare perspective, I think that's more of there's choice out there in the marketplace. You've got to find the right fit for you in terms of what works for you, best for your practice. But going down the Seamlss and Ignition path, unpack that one with a couple of minutes to spare at our 45-minute time check. So if anybody wants to go, obviously you can tune into the remainder of this at a later stage, but let's go down that path and unpack it. Seamlss and Ignition, go.
We had so many people thinking that we were competitors or similar. The only thing that we do is sign an engagement letter. So in Ignition, they accept a proposal, they collect the money, and you sign an engagement letter. All we're doing is sign the engagement letter. So if you're not using Ignition, then getting your engagement letter signed digitally with us, no brainer. Makes it easy. Onboarding done. Ignition doesn't actually collect the details. It doesn't do verification of clients. So you might get a little bit of data into Ignition through some Zaps. I use Ignition in my practice. Clearly found our Seamlss, but we still use Ignition here right now. So they go together. You can actually go from Ignition, from accepting the proposal right at the end, and the last comments, we've added a lead link from Ignition. So you can click on the link from within Ignition, and the client can then continue on in Seamlss through the onboarding process of collecting the client's details from Ignition. Then we're not the same. We don't really do the same thing apart from that one engagement letter part. But in my mind, the engagement letter is very important to get that sign off, just add them to the ATO portal. So it's a requirement of onboarding your clients. So
yeah, and it's literally just your client signing your T's and C's, which is, they're just accepting the T's and C's of doing work with you. And it's that cover thy butt perspective in terms of you doing anything for and on behalf of the client. You are covering your butts. That's the whole point of actually getting some form of something signed. But I agree with you insofar as there's a lot of differences between what Ignition does versus in terms of the functionality. It's a much bigger platform in terms of, it integrates with workflows, it integrates with collecting payments, it integrates with automating invoices. It literally spits out exactly what service you're actually doing for your clients. You're not doing that unless you get really granular with your engagement terms, which in my opinion, don't do that through Seamlss. Like, that's not what Seamlss is all about. It's about covering your butt from a high level T's and C's perspective, but actually, as you say, gathering that data, implementing that, getting that data from your clients, verifying that data, pushing that to your new platform, basically.
And I think if you're the kind of firm that is very full in its position on clients and you're choosy with your clients, onboarding them with Seamlss allows you to have a better meeting, see where they're at with the ATO, all those aspects before you even send them the Ignition proposal. So it just depends on where you sit in your lifestyle. So if you send them an Ignition proposal and they agree and then you onboard them, cool, that's your process. But some firms are, quite full. Like, everyone's busy at the moment. They're all, I've got too much work on. Well, if you want every client, then maybe that is the process. You onboard them, vet them, and then send them a proposal.
Just depends on what your process is. And I think that's the beauty of this, which is, and like this app, like this wheel diagram at the moment, it's choice. How do you want to run your practice around your onboarding process, your engagement process, your verification process, your ID process, just making sure that the details are actually correct and, onboarding your clients seamlessly.
And how's that data moving around seamlessly?
Yes, correct. Awesome. Okay, so I'm hoping if there's any more questions, feel free, obviously, please put them in the chat. But whilst we have actually answered a lot of questions along the way, which is fabulous. Daniel has put in there in the chat as well for anybody who wants to find out how to actually use Seamlss with Ignition in so far as that kind of thing. There's a little help video that we did too, so we can obviously send that across to you too as well. But yeah, feel free if there's any more questions. I don't know that there actually are. So in relation to that then, who wants to hear more? Let me launch a poll if you'd like to hear more. Launch. All this will help us do is get in touch with you quicker, basically, in relation to if anybody wants to hear from us. Can we link that here, please? There's a great little help video from Clarity Street about Ignition. There is somewhere around. I will find it. Christine, I'm really sorry. I don't have access to find it instantaneously at the moment. We will send it in the follow-up email. I promise you though, okay? That will come out in the next 24 hours around, you'll get a recording to it. So it will definitely be there. So if anybody wants to hear from Seamlss, feel free, reach out. If you want to hear from Clarity Street, obviously, please feel free. Oh, well done, Daniel. Look at you go.
Daniel is handy.
Well played. Well played.
Make it a lot easier. Like it.
Clayton, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure, obviously, chatting through your product. Really excited to have you on board the Clarity Street app stack. And, if anybody's got any questions around how this product can work, please do reach out to either Clarity Street or obviously Clayton directly at the Seamlss team. But, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much. Any parting words, Clayton?
Thank you for having us. Super excited and proud to be on your app stack. It was a goal of mine and we've reached it. Yay us. Yeah, thanks everyone for coming. And yeah, love feedback. The only way we can make it better is by you telling us how it can be better so that Daniel can get in there and make it better.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Take care, everybody. Have a great day.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.